If you're not tracking your money, you are overspending. And when you're not watching your books, you are going to make bad financial decisions. The last video, I talked about 8 ways to make more money in your business. So now I'm going to talk about 3 ways to make more money in your business. That's the other side of the coin, and that's going to make sense here in a second. So what I find when I consult with my clients, with many of my clients, is that we look at their books, and I very quickly can determine by looking at their books why they're having money problems. And so a little takeaway there, a tip of takeaway is that if you're not watching your books, then you're probably not making enough money. And again, that's going to make more sense here in a second. So what I notice when I'm looking at clients' books is that they're overspending. And business owners are notorious for overspending in their business. And they're overspending in their business for a number of reasons, usually because they're not tracking the expenses and they don't realize how much money they're spending. And this is the same in business as it is in your household. I have both a household finance program and a business finance program, and money is money. So money isn't working in your business for the same reason as money isn't working in your household. So it's always the same for both. But in this case, we're going to talk about your business. And if you're not tracking your money, you are overspending because money evaporates. Like I said, same thing with household. So what I teach in both programs is that you have to track and manage your money. And you have to line item exactly where all the money's going so that you can get a view of, oh my gosh, I had no idea that the business was spending this much money on travel, or the business was spending this much money on restaurants, or whatever the case may be. But your business financial, your books will tell you how you're doing. But that's the number reason businesses overspend, or business owners overspend, because they're not tracking their money. Another thing that they're doing is they're treating their business like an ATM. They're making a lot of money, and so they're just frivolously spending this. A recent consultation that I had lately, this business owner is making about $3 million a year in their business over the last 6 years. And they still have never made a profit. And I've gotten a bird's eye view into the lifestyle, and the business is basically funding this crazy lifestyle, and it's not sustainable. So treating the business like an ATM is very dangerous. What I mean is just like, the business will pay for it. I've got it, the business will pay for it. So that's the second place that businesses tend to overspend. In that arena is what I notice also is this need to be seen. It's kind of the FOMO that is in a lot of business conferences and masterminds. I had another client that when I looked at his books, I was really looking at the travel, and I was looking at all these masterminds and events, and I said, Mark, what the heck? Like, where's the money attached to all of these different events? And he's like, not really. I just know someday it will come in. I meet a lot of people and do a lot of things. But really, it was more the social club. And it wasn't about business, but it's about being seen and being included and having a good time. And eventually I said, we need to cut this down, and it's okay. You can have these social things, but that should be on your personal books, not in your business books, because those events aren't attaching back to extra money in the business. So lots of overspending when it comes with this desire to be seen and be popular and be in the club. Another one that I see all of the time, and I imagine most of us listening are guilty of this, is overspending due to this belief that it's a tax write-off. And I see so much, like I said, just expense on the books. It's like, oh, it's just a tax write-off. I can write off this, I can write off that. We can write off everything. And somehow it's been conditioned that as long as it's a tax write-off, no worries, we can spend the money. And, at best case, you might be getting 20% tax savings by some of the spending that you're putting on your business books, but it's not a dollar for dollar. So I teach my clients to really catch themselves when they have that thought, like, oh, it's a tax write-off. I'll just swipe the credit card. If you have that habit, we want to break that habit. And then the final place where I see money being spent and business owners overspending is they don't read their financial statements. They don't understand their financial statements. They're not running a regular profit and loss. They're not running a regular balance sheet. If they have a good business, their CPA or their bookkeeper do all that. They just want to go make more money. They don't want to watch the books. And when you're not watching your books, you're going to make bad financial decisions because your books tell a story. Your books reveal to you where the problem areas are of the business, where you're overspending, what needs to be fixed. And so too many purchases and other business decisions are poorly made because they're made without looking at how the business is working from a financial perspective. So how I like to synthesize those or kind of filter all of those expenses in what I call the 3 E's of spending. So there's 3 types of spending in your business. And what you want to do is look at all of the spending of the business. Let's take the last 90 days. And this is what I do with my clients. So I have them look at 90 days or 6 months of expenses, looking at every single expense, and to start list all the expenses, and then to write next to them what type of expense it is. So the first one is what I call essential. So essential spending is just that, meaning it's essential for the operations of the business. These are typically your operational expenses, but meaning if you didn't spend it, it would hurt the business. So examples of essential spending are your technology. A lot of the technology you need to spend it in order to keep making money. Maybe payroll. So you need to have team members to be able to, for the business to keep moving, to keep operating. I mean, there's all types of just the normal operating expenses that your business will have. And it's essential, meaning if you quit spending the money, it's going to have a negative effect on the business. But what I have my customers do is calculate what is their monthly burn rate, meaning of the essential expenses, how much does it cost to operate the business if they didn't get one sale? It's really important to know this number, to know what the burn rate, how much money or cash you're burning just to keep the business lights on every single month. So you have to have essential spending, and this is what you spend your money on, but you also want to keep a track on it because you want to make sure that everything is essential. The second one that is we look at is expansive or expansion spending. So this is different. Expansive spending is about growth. And so this is what we call money that's reinvested back into the business. So it's different than operating, meaning it's not necessary to spend this money, but it's money you're choosing to spend that's extra over and above the essential, because you want to buy something, let's say in the business, that you think is going to grow the business, is going to expand the business. And maybe you have purchased a coaching program. And this coaching program is going to teach you how to be a better business person. And let's just call that wise money business. And so you invest in this coaching program with me, and it's $12,000. And so this $12,000, this is a choice. You're choosing to spend this $12,000 on this business coaching program to be able to make more money in your business over and above the essential operating expenses. So what's important about this is what I recommend to all of my clients is that you want to get an idea every year of how much you want to reinvest basically back into the business, how much you're going to put into the business over and above the operations to be able to get better at something or grow the business overall, to be better at business. So with this money, what's important with this is what we call ROI. So what happens is that business owners and entrepreneurs are so notorious, they just buy everything. They're trying to buy a bigger business, buy a better business, be better at business themselves. And so they're buying the next shiny penny. They're buying lots of coaching programs. They're buying everything to try to make the business better, to grow the business. And that's not a bad thing. We have to do that. It's always necessary to reinvest in the business. But the problem is it's not thoughtful. Like at the beginning of the year or when you're doing your business planning, is like, okay, how much do I want to reinvest into the business this year? And give yourself a budget. It's like, hey, I have a $25,000 budget or a $50,000 budget or maybe a $10,000 or $5,000. Like it doesn't matter based on what stage of business you are in, but I want you to create like a budget of how much this year do I plan to reinvest in the business? And that becomes your container so that you don't overspend. Most of my clients, I'd say, because they're investing with me in my programs, they're like me. I'm an education program junkie. I can so spend way too much money here because I love learning and I love becoming better and I want to learn all the latest trends and all the latest hacks and technology and so on and so forth. So if you're like me and like most of my clients, it's really easy to overspend here. So you want to look at, okay, if I want to grow the business this year, what's going to be the one area of business where I really want to invest in to become better at? And what's my budget to reinvest? And then you choose a number and that becomes your container so that when you're at the $25,000 spend, you're not spending anything else. That's all you've spent the money that you budgeted for the expansion part of your business. So, and this isn't advertising or anything. This is like a big chunk of money that you're putting in for some type of return. And that's what we call the return on investment. So this is the way to think of it. You're investing, you're putting more capital into the business, you're investing in the business for some return later on. So what happens, again, a mistake that I see all the time is that entrepreneurs will keep buying the next thing and the next thing. It's like, hey, I put $25,000 in the business. I bought something this year. I bought the new How to Make $1 Million on YouTube, and I spent the $25K. That didn't quite work. I probably didn't do everything they told me to do, but that didn't quite work. So next year's like, hey, I think I want to do a podcast. I'll spend $50,000 to get a podcast started. They do that. That didn't work. You know what? Maybe if I spend $100,000 to do a book and have a book writer and launch the book, that's going to work. So they just keep spending without ever producing a real return on that one cost or one expense. So when we do this, if we're spending $12,000 with Krisstina, then it's looking at, hey, I want to create $100,000 out of that $12,000 investment or whatever. So my rule here for ROI is if I'm going to spend money on something, at a minimum, I'm looking at a 3x return, and I'm going to make an assessment. If I spend $25,000, am I going to make $75,000 to $100,000 off this investment? And I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep working, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I get that $100,000 back out to make sure it was worthwhile expenditure. Now, there's two sides of that. One, it's my responsibility as the owner to produce a return. So I've spent the money. I need to put in the time. I need to ask for the help. I need to finish. I need to hold the people I've spent money with accountable and really take ownership of that. But the other side is to be very selective with who you're spending your money with to make sure that they're as concerned about your return as you are. And a lot of people will take your money, but they're not necessarily concerned about your return. So you want to work with those that actually want you to be successful and want you to create a return and that they can speak in terms of ROI. All right, so essential and expansive, different types of spending. And the third type of spending is what I call excessive. And excessive is basically non-essential. So excessive just means excessive spending. It means it has nothing to do with the operations of business. It has nothing to do with ROI, and it's the frivolous spend. And when you're not watching your books, you'd be amazed at how much excessive spending there is. And where I usually see excessive spending is a lot of entertainment. I see a lot of entertainment on the books, a lot of travel on the books, especially as entrepreneurs. We can write off travel. So many times the travel expenses are excessive. And what happens with travel, it's not the travel itself, but what gets entrepreneurs into trouble is when they travel, they spend a lot more money. So when they're going to the mastermind, that's great. They spent, let's say, $10,000 to go to the mastermind, and they spent, let's say, $5,000 plus just on, maybe not that much, but a couple $1,000s on airfare and just the travel, hotel room and airfare. So that's great. You spend that, but then you go to the Michelin star restaurants and you drink a lot more. And like I said, you spend a lot more money on food and entertainment and things. And so by, one business trip, can all of a sudden be, 10 plus, just depending on what the cost of the mastermind of what itself, but it can be anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000 to go on this business trip, which is excessive. But it's natural to overspend when we're at these types of events and you're with friends and meeting new people. And like I said, drinking and eating and doing all the things. So travel tends to be over excessive spending. I also see excessive spending. I call this, there's this one exercise in my program that's called Small Leaks Sink Big Ships. And it's where I have them go through their books and look at all the SaaS, for example, the subscriptions as a service and software as a service that are subscriptions. That's funny. It is subscriptions as a service, basically. But subscriptions, because when you look at your books, you'll realize like you're spending all this money that you're not utilizing the software. And things are changing all the time. For example, I was spending $1,200 a year on auto transcription. And then I noticed on my books, they charged me $1,200 in advance for the year. And I was like, wait a second, we're not even using Otter anymore because now we can use Zoom transcription without spending any extra money. So by looking at my books, I was able to notice that charge. They charged it right up front. And when I called them, they said, you know what, we don't give refunds, but because you caught this right away, we'll give you a refund. So I think I got like $1,150 back or something. But it's just to understand that there's a lot of software, there's a lot of subscriptions. There are so many things on your books that you're spending that you're not aware of, that transaction fees, there are so many places where you can save, kind of what I call shave and save money in your business books that would sit in this excessive category because it has nothing to do with real operations and burn rate to keep the organization going. And it has nothing to do with infusion of money to really create that return on investment so that you can turn $10,000 into $100,000 plus gain. So that's what excessive is. So my challenge for you is go through your books, look at the last 90 days, and with each charge, write down, was this an essential spend? Was this expansive or was this excessive? And tally it up. And I think that you'll be amazed at how much money you're wasting in your business by not knowing the difference between these three expenses. So as always, thank you so much for being here. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so. Leave a comment in the comment box, ask a question. And if you tally up some numbers, let me know how much money you found in excessive spending. That's all I've got for today. Thanks so much and see you next time.